Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a CastBox original produced in partnership with our friends at Studio 71. CastBox is the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app on both iOS and Android, and all of your favorite podcasts are there, ripe for the downloading. Sacred Symbols is available wherever you get your podcasts, of course, but we hope you'll give CastBox a shot. We think it's pretty rad. To get each episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days before the public, completely ad-free, please consider supporting the show on Patreon at patreon.com/CollinsLastStand. Perks for support include not only getting the show early and ad-free, but you can also gain access to monthly exclusive podcasts. And supporting on Patreon is the only way to get your listener mail read on the air, and much more. Plus, supporting Sacred Symbols on Patreon also nets you perks for other Collins Last Stand shows automatically, including the nostalgia and retro podcast Knockback, the YouTube series dedicated to gaming called SideQuest, and the eclectic interview podcast Fireside Chats. Thank you for your generosity, kindness, and support. Without you, Sacred Symbols and all things Collins Last Stand would not exist. But enough of that. On to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 34. 34, Chris. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by the illustrious Chris Raygun.
How's it going? Illustrious. I think we've used that before. You're getting a bit lazy there.
Yeah, well, I'm getting a little, it's probably also the pot. You know?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
I've been staying up, Chris, late night lately. I'm always up late. But I've been staying up really late. I've been going to bed at like 5, 6, 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching a bunch of random movies. And in preparation for Knockback, the retro podcast I do, I've been watching the Karate Kid movies. I watched the first two.
Right.
That second Karate Kid movie, I don't want to ruin the Knockback episode. That second Karate Kid movie sucks. The movie sucks.
I didn't like the first one.
Really?
Yeah. I don't care about karate.
Yeah.
Karate was kind of lame by the time that I was like watching movies like that. It was just like, okay, well, I've seen dinosaurs. Karate Kid isn't like...
No, exactly. It's a step back.
It's a step back.
It's a regression. Sure. But I gotta say, I don't want to ruin the episode too much, but I'm of the mind that Danny-san, is the antagonist of Karate Kid. And I'll get into that more, later on. Everything bad that happens to Danny in Karate Kid is his fault, with one exception. That's it. So just want to throw that out there. A little bit of a teaser, a little non sequitur.
Yeah, there you go.
But I've also been up late playing video games and enjoying some different films and enjoying some different greenery and ordering McDonald's breakfast at 3 a.m. If you told me 10 years ago, Colin, not only would McDonald's serve breakfast all day like you always wanted, but you can get that shit delivered to your house at 3 a.m.
You can get it Amazon drone lifted to your house.
What an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the McDonald's hotcakes?
When I was a kid, I had them a lot, but I haven't been to a McDonald's in probably 10 years.
Wow.
I'm sure I'd probably still like them if I went back to it.
There's something special about the McDonald's hotcakes.
Yeah.
The butter.
I remember really liking them.
They're great. I feel like they're underrated, and a lot of people make fun of me for ordering them, Chris, but I feel like they wouldn't make them anymore if no one else was ordering them.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a very clearly popular item.
It's not just for me.
If it's still around.
It's not just for me.
You know what baffles me? That the chicken fries, very popular at Burger King, just died for a couple of years.
Yeah, they did. And
I was sad about that.
So you like the chicken fries?
Yeah, that's the only reason I went there.
Burger King's a little weird because I love Burger King. I think Burger King's great, but it's hard to find a good Burger King. Usually it's like Wendy's. Like, they couldn't give a fuck less at Wendy's about what's going on. Like, if you could just find the good Wendy's and the good Burger King.
Yeah, there's always a good one.
Right, exactly.
You have to scour the earth to find.
Because the Whopper is like an amazing sandwich. But when you order the Whopper at a 9 out of 10, it's like someone literally shit in like a box.
Yeah, no, it's trash.
So I just wanted to, I don't know what the hell we're talking about. This is a PlayStation podcast. And
eventually it will be.
Eventually we'll get in there. It goes up every week on Fridays on public feeds. But if you want it 3 days early, ad-free, please support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/CollinsLastStand. Doing so also allows you to access exclusive podcasts and submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show, which we read throughout the show as veterans of Sacred Symbols and the Sacred Symbols Wars know all about. That sounds kind of interesting, right? The Sacred Symbols War. The Sacred Symbols Wars. It sounds like something from Final Fantasy Tactics or something.
Yeah, it sounds like a grimoire card, like a lore thing.
Exactly. Well, we can make it up as we go along. Now, I want to remind you, I've been reminding you over and over again, next week's episode 35, will be recorded and posted a day later than usual. So I wanted to let everyone know it will not affect free feeds, but unfortunately will affect Patreon. I will be in Philadelphia and will not be back in time for us to record. So we will record on Tuesday and publish on Wednesday instead of recording on Monday and publishing on Tuesday. And Chris, I saw on Twitter and on Instagram that your computer blue screened and is now broken. So I was curious if you could tell me a little bit about that. That sucks.
Yeah, it's a real huge setback. I could still save a decent amount of stuff. It's really, I didn't lose all that much progress on any projects that I was doing because any big projects are still kind of like really early. But it's really tedious to have to replace a rig like that because it's not just like a little part of it. It's like the initial boot. Like when you boot it up, it's like that's not working right. The hard drives are bricked. So not a great week for that.
That sucks, man.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
So I got to wait for like parts to come in before I can even start working. But I can write a lot, I guess.
Yeah, you can write and maybe play some games and get away from it for a little while. It's almost like it sucks because that's your livelihood. Like I would be shit out of luck without my computer. But at the same time, it's kind of like liberating. You know, it's like when my iPhone crashed a few years ago. I had like an iPhone, I don't know what it was, 5S or something, and it crashed. And I lost all my pictures, and I didn't download them to the iCloud. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't really need these pictures. I felt immediate liberation from the past.
That's kind of how I'm gonna feel when I get because I feel like okay, maybe it'll be less stressful to work when I don't have like 40 different drives and like different files. My workstation's a mess as it is, so it's probably gonna be a really good feeling to just have like a clear space to work again.
It's a blessing in disguise, some might call it. Now, you custom make your computers, obviously. It seems like
I custom made the first one. This time I'm just like I don't have the time. I don't have the time or patience to put together a PC this time. I just got a really good one, and I'm waiting for it to arrive. Also, I just don't want to waste the time. It's gonna take ages for it to get here in the first place. I don't want to then like spend a day building it. Right. I got to get back to work.
No, absolutely. I absolutely hear you. I use Origin laptops. I have 2 of them. Not really crazy about them, to be honest with you, but. You know, it's just there and I know it, so I just order those. It takes forever for them to manufacture and send it away, which is always very convenient. Chris, William wrote into us on Patreon, just like you guys can out there. He asks, is porridge a soup or a cereal? Is porridge a soup or a cereal?
What exactly is porridge? The porridge is like oatmeal kind of, right?
I'm going to look it up right now, definition. But I always looked at it as like some sort of gruel, some sort of maybe like oats with maybe some sort of beef stock in it, or it's a dish consisting of oatmeal or another meal, or cereal boiled in water or milk. Therefore, it answers the question.
Okay, yeah.
Porridge is a cereal.
There you go. See, that's in the definition. That's not a frustrating one like, is cars a wheel?
Right.
You know, or like, so like what?
Yeah, exactly. Now you guys are just trying to annoy us, but actually, William, that didn't annoy us nearly as much as you probably thought it was going to.
It was a reasonable question.
Michael Betts wrote into us, Chris, and said, hey guys, on the last episode, it was pointed out how hard the RE2 Platinum is to get. I just wanted to tell listeners that it's actually not that hard, as the game is similar to RE7 in that you start getting items like a pistol with unlimited ammo you can use to complete the trophies, to get an S rank, etc. The trophies don't seem bad once you get these special items. Wanted to throw that out there because I talked about the impossibility of that Platinum trophy. Michael Betts says no, Colin.
I wonder what the percentage is of players who've achieved it, though.
It's probably going to be only 2 or 3%. That's my prediction. 2 or 3%.
Yeah,
because that's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. Now, do you want it bad enough? That's the question. And I don't know that I do. Chris certainly doesn't. Chris looks bewildered. So.
No, I refuse to count my steps or whatever it is. There's like
14,000 steps.
I'm not going to count my steps. See, leave me alone with that.
That's a lot. That's a lot to worry about, especially with that guy chasing you around, and it's a whole thing. You don't want to deal with that. Nat Patterson wrote into us on Patreon as well. Said, hey, fellas, just wanted to quickly say that the show is awesome and a highlight of my week. Thank you, Nat. As far as an early access to games goes, I don't think it's necessary or essential to your podcast. Personally, I like having at least tried a game or read some major publication reviews after hearing my favorite podcasters talk about it anyway, just to get some perspective. He says, hope you're well and that the show continues for many years to come. Thank you, Nat. Appreciate you. This, of course, Chris, is in reference to our lengthy conversation last week about PR access and how they treat us kind of unfairly. The resounding response, almost unanimously from the audience, both publicly and on Patreon, private messages, DMs, is, if people don't want to work with you guys, then don't. You guys can kindly ask for access, and if they don't want to give it to you, don't sweat it. Yeah. So I think that's what we're going to do. Thank you to all of the publishers that treat us like adults and human beings, like Electronic Arts and Square Enix has been really nice to us, and others. And for those like Ubisoft and Deep Silver that don't want to work with us anymore, or never did, you guys can come to us when you're ready, if you ever are.
Such is life.
And finally, before we get into what we're playing, Chris, I just wanted to remind everyone, there is a new poll on Patreon for $2 and up a month subscribers over there. We do a bunch of votes every month. That's also how you can submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas. But now I'm letting people vote on the Let's Plays that you and I will do. As long as we stay above 5,000 subscribers over there, which we are above right now, we'll continue to do 1 or 2 Let's Plays a month. I'm going to let people choose. The vote is going on right now. I hate to tell you, Kingdom Hearts has a plurality of the vote, but you have until the end of the month to cast your ballot. So I'm sorry about that, Chris.
Oh, dear God.
Now, Chris, what are you playing?
I'm playing Hollow Knight.
That's an excellent game.
And it's very enjoyable. I haven't gotten too deep into it. It's not really challenging quite yet. Metroidvanias like that, particularly like always kind of like I always get lost. Like I couldn't do the original Castlevanias like all that well. Like I played them a bunch and I was just constantly lost. And it feels kind of the same thing here. But I like the aesthetic of it. I like the atmosphere of it. I like kind of like the weird gothic, almost chibi style going on with it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really good looking game. It feels good to play. I'm just waiting for it to get punishing.
It does. It's funny because we had the same exact conversation on the podcast when I started playing the game, and people wrote into me making fun of me because they're like, "You're crazy if you don't think the game's hard." And the game gets insane. Mostly optional parts, like optional gauntlets and dungeons and stuff, where it's like, this is absolutely nuts. And that's a hard platinum to earn. But I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that you're playing it and enjoying it as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about Hollow Knight later because the sequel was announced. But we'll wait for the news. So, are you think? The fuck does that mean? Do you think you're going to get through the game, or is this kind of an aside as you wait? It is
definitely
something.
Something an aside. It's definitely a side thing for me. That's kind of how I treat platformers in general. It's like just something that I can pick up and play when I'm like not doing anything else, or like when I'm in an Uber, when I'm on like a bus, if I'm ever going to take a bus again, you know, in that unlikely event.
Buses, man. I haven't been on a long distance bus in a long time.
Last bus I was on was a school bus in high school, and I swore them off.
They're no good.
No.
You don't want to be on a bus.
No, they're just trains that are susceptible to traffic.
Isn't it weird that, well, I know that the flat nose buses have seatbelts, but when I was a kid, the normal buses didn't even have seatbelts in them. So it's just weird.
Yeah, they
don't. Put a bunch of small 50-pound people in a bus and hope for the best.
Yeah.
You know? It seemed like a death trap kind of in hindsight. But
it is really a horrible idea.
It is. Chris, I've been playing a couple of games. I played Bioshock all the way through on PlayStation 4. That's like my third or fourth time through the game. I'm doing it again in preparation of Knockback. I platinumed it, so that's my second time platinuming the game. That's a tough platinum trophy to get, but really, really rewarding. And I must say, just to reiterate, Bioshock is so good. So good. I know that the last fourth or so of the story is a little weird, and it is. It does get a little weak towards the very end, but it just feels good. It plays right. The voice acting's stellar. The writing is stellar. It still looks awesome. It's atmospheric.
It's aged like very well. That water still looks great.
Yeah, everything about it.
Which is wild.
It's really something special. And people had been pointing out, because we talked about it a little bit last week, that the Bioshock collection was on sale. I don't know if it's still on sale, but even if you're paying whatever it usually costs, $40 or $30 or whatever, totally worth it, because you get Bioshock, Bioshock 2, and Bioshock Infinite. Just fantastic games. I just want to reiterate that one more time. If you've never played Bioshock, just go. Trust me. Trust Chris. Just go and
fantastic.
Play it.
I actually played Bioshock Infinite probably more times than I care to admit.
Another great game.
Like a ridiculous. I think I actually beat that game 16 times for real.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Especially because that's a 10 to 12 hour game at least.
Yeah. I just kept going back to it and just like finding myself, I finished it. Whoops.
It's so good. And you know what? It's funny, man, because Bioshock Infinite, when it came out in 2013, I didn't like it. I don't want to say I didn't like it. It just didn't resonate with me. It felt more like a shooter, and it didn't feel like Bioshock to me. And I was just put off. I'm like, It definitely
felt like not Bioshock. But I don't know. From the moment I played it, I was like, I like this for some reason, and I can't quite tell why.
The other thing, though, about Infinite is that I was wrong about it, I think that it's just different. It's just a little different, but Columbia... Really cool idea. This idea of like kind of venerating the founding fathers as gods and stuff is like really cool. It's just Ken Levine is a genius, just an absolute genius of a creative director, writer. Conceptually, everything's perfect.
Yeah.
know? I don't know, man. I don't know how you do it, Ken.
I love that game because it's like it's not a horror game at all until that one point where it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, what is this?
It's not a horror game. It's scary. And I think those are two different things.
It's unsettling a lot. And there's one particular point where they have like horn. What are they called in the game? I can't remember. They're like the something boys or whatever.
Oh, yeah. The guys that are like blind, but they have the...
they have the horns on their heads.
What the fuck are they called? I can't remember.
It's been a while, but
those designs are amazing.
The game just puts you into this situation where it's all of a sudden frightening. And it's beautiful because it comes out of left field entirely.
Yeah, those characters are, and the other unsettling characters are those big machines, like
they're Infinite. Constantly screaming in torturous wails.
It's really, really something special, guys. I really do encourage you all out there. Although I'm sure most of you have played those games already. I'm also playing Far Cry New Dawn. I bought it.
How is that?
It's good. You know, there's something about it that's really cool. Where first of all, it feels kind of like it's going into Borderlands territory. Just like numbers bounce out of the enemies when you shoot them now. Just little things like that, where you're seeing their hit points bounce out and stuff. Very satisfying. I don't know why Far Cry never did that before, but there's also like something missing. I know it's a $40 game. It's kind of an interstitial game. It assumes that you played the original in some way, although you can play it without having played Far Cry 5. but it's a little light on story. It seems like the map's pretty much the same. There's a really nice way that they kind of streamline crafting. Crafting's always a pain in the ass in a lot of Far Cry games because you got to go kill the boar and then you got to go get the fish and you don't have to really do that anymore. You're just finding like parts, and there are like many parts. And when you skin an animal, you just sell it for parts. So you don't need to like skin animals and do all this annoying shit. So it's streamlined in that way. The cool thing about it, though, is that you can replay bases. So
I heard about that.
Yeah, so when you take bases, you can actually abandon the base and take shit with you, and then the enemy reoccupies the base with even more enemies, and you can do this like several times and then get more and more out of them the more you fight them, which is pretty cool. And there's also this other thing called expeditions where you just take a helicopter to just random places and do like these random one-off maps. So it's pretty satisfying. It seems like there's a lot of bang for your buck for $40 in the game. Yeah. But again, doesn't have that special story thing going that Far Cry 5 did and 4 and 3 did with, just the weird characters and stuff like that. It just doesn't feel as good in that respect. But I like it. I mean, I recommend it. If you're a Far Cry fan, certainly you're going to want to play it. So yeah, those are the games I'm playing. Really looking forward to finishing Far Cry. Again, I got to travel to Philadelphia in a couple days, so I'll probably be segueing to Vita. Yeah. I did try to download the Metroid games, Metroid 2 and Metroid or Super Metroid on my Switch. They're not even available.
Really?
No.
On Switch?
I don't keep up with it at all.
Huh.
So I was like tweeting about it, and people were like, you got to sign up for the online service, and then you get Metroid for free. And I'm like, well, that's not happening. So
it's also not free if you have to sign up for the online service.
Exactly. And I'm like, I would like to buy it. I've already bought the original Metroid probably 3 fucking times. How many more times am I going to have to buy this? It's too much.
This is where we're headed. We're just going to have to keep rebuying our old shit.
I think I had it on Wii. I think I had it on 3DS. I think that's it. So twice. I bought it twice. I don't even know where my 3DS is. God only knows where that thing is. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll play my Switch and catch up on some of these Metroid games that I haven't played in a long time. No, can't do that. Thanks, Nintendo. Oh, well. Appreciate you. Chris, before we get into the news, David Young wrote into us and said, howdy, CNC. Greetings from Edinburgh. Question for Colin. I mentioned to you a couple of weeks back. What's your process behind going for plats? I only have a handful myself and always feel it's a huge task to get them, e.g. multiple playthroughs collectibles. Any tips for someone looking to add some shiny platinums? Well, David, as I said, I got the platinum in Bioshock again. That's my 80th platinum trophy. You have to be a certain kind of person, I think, to be able to platinum a game. You can get some easy platinums, but it speaks to my OCD nature, my formulaic nature, checking box. I like it. I like following trophy guides and like finding all the collectibles and beating games.
Yeah, it's
on
like
the
a scavenger
difficulty.
hunt almost.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So does it make me more of a legitimate gamer? I don't know about that, but it's just something, it's a metagame that I enjoy. So my suggestion is always to identify games you really like. Don't platinum games and go for trophies in games you don't really want to play. That's a mistake. Everyone's gone down that road and it's a mistake. When achievements came out in 2005, 2006, I had roommates that did that shit. It's like...
Yeah. They were just achievement hunting.
Exactly.
It's a huge thing.
You don't want to do that, in my opinion. Find the games that you really identify with. There's fucking thousands of games available. And find trophy guides and try to just go through it formulaically and make sure that there's no missable trophies. Make sure you're playing it on the right difficulty, all of that. It's a little subculture.
It used to piss me off. Like early days on the Xbox 360, they had the achievements usually are on like a 5-point to like 10-point increment. But my God, the amount of games back then that came out there had like 2 gamer points or like 7 gamer points, and then your score's like gross, and it's got like a dumb number. Cloning Clyde specifically, I remember this. Do you guys remember Cloning Clyde?
I don't remember that.
It's an awful video game. Don't play it. It also screws with you, screws with achievements. And I imagine the trophy list is probably even worse if it's even on PlayStation. God willing, it's not.
I don't think it is because it might be on it, but we didn't get trophies until 2008. So
yeah, good.
Yeah.
You're not missing out on anything. It's an awful game.
Yeah, it was funny to watch people kind of figure out what achievements were. Like I remember King Kong, for instance, the game had like really easy achievements, and then lots of games, like you said, had like tons of achievements, like way too many achievements.
Yeah.
Because you all split the 1,000 points or whatever. So it's funny to find their way. And I understand people aren't into the metagame, but I am. And so those are my suggestions. And stay frosty out there.
Yeah.
All right? Stay frosty out there, David Young. Chris, let's get into the news.
Let's do it.
Number 1. Last week, we spoke about rumors of impending layoffs at megalithic publisher Activision Blizzard, and this week, we have the sad news confirming those rumors. Activision Blizzard has laid off 8% of its global staff, or roughly 800 people. Kotaku and other industry sources confirm that the layoffs are broad, striking Blizzard itself, the mobile giant King, Activision-owned developers like High Noon, and others. However, the layoff also seemed focused on trimming teams whose respective... Isn't it High Moon? I think I might have wrote that wrong.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. However, the layoff also seemed focused on trimming teams whose respective internal purposes are waning, like Activision's Destiny-related staff, Blizzard's Heroes of the Storm and esports-related staff, and others. The news came alongside Activision's 2018 financial report and conference call, in which Activision CEO Bobby Kotick noted that Activision's, quote, financial results for 2018 were the best in our history, end quote, but they, quote, didn't realize our full potential, end quote. The publisher confirmed all laid-off employees would receive comprehensive severance packages, in quotes. Activision stock has had a rough 12 months, with shares once being traded at $80 6 months ago, now being traded for barely half that. And while the company saw great success with products like its most recent Call of Duty, it's also dealing with an increasingly competitive landscape that's going to continue to eat into its market share, perhaps putting growth moving forward in existential risk. Obviously, we wish everyone affected the very, very best. Very sad news. What do you make of this, Chris? Because this has been quite controversial. I'm not really even sure how else to put it. It's just been this controversial kind of thing about laid off workers and workers' rights and the video game industry and the churn of talent. And I don't know, do you have anything interesting to say about this? Because to me, I've been following this pretty closely and I feel like I have a lot to say about it, but at the same time, I feel like I've already said most of it in my video that I put up last week.
Yeah, I feel like it bothers me that they're just like, oh, we didn't realize our full potential even though we did super well. That to me is like the weirdest thing about it because I don't understand the mindset behind what happened. The bridges aren't really connecting there to me. You could have just like relocated that staff, couldn't you? The inner workings of businesses is like super complicated, so we don't know like everything that's going on, but it does strike me odd that they came out publicly with that kind of narrative to kind of just supplement this actual like really sad story with. It's odd.
It is odd. Someone did point out the obvious, I guess, if you think about it, which is that when Bobby Kotick and these other guys are on this conference call talking about this, they're not talking to anyone but their investors.
Yeah.
So like everyone's listening to it and reporting on it, obviously, but they're really only super concerned with the people who have money vested in the company and what they're going to get out of it. And so from that point of view, I understand more of the kind of cutthroat terminology that they're using where they're just trying to relay, word as, by the way, they're fiduciarily and legally obligated to do as a publicly traded company. So there's something about that. But I want to read a couple of these comments before I go any further that we got from the audience. Michael Lepper wrote in and said, "Hey, CNC, last week's conversation about Activision Blizzard piqued my interest. In May, I will have my BS in accounting, so any financial talk excites me. The layoffs surrounding Activision Blizzard inspired me to look over all their previous annual reports and get the real story from their financials. This is what I found. EPS is up year over year. I don't know what that is. Or earnings per share, I assume. Revenues are up year over year. Expenses seem relatively static year over year. Their asset turnover ratio appears healthy, and they seem to be paying their debts timely. The only significant decrease was in retail revenue. I don't have the full picture, obviously, but as a company overall, they seem perfectly fine. Just wanted to provide a more in-depth financial POV to the conversation. Thanks, guys, and keep up the great work." Well, thank you for that, Michael. I was looking a little bit into their finances as well, and that's why I brought up, Chris, their stock. Now, 6 months ago, their stock was trading at almost twice as much as it's trading now. And I think that this might feed into, and again, these aren't popular things to say when it's easy to just take one side, but I'm just trying to explain it from maybe a point of view that will make sense to people. If you bought stock in Activision 6 months ago at $75 a share, now it's now trading at $40 a share. So let's say you bought $10,000 worth of stock. You've already lost an enormous amount of money just on the investment. But you don't make money back on stock only by buying and trading stock. You make it on dividends. Your investment makes money back. You keep your money invested. You keep making money back in dividends. People have been talking about how they laid off 8% of their employees and then raised their dividend payout to 9% invested. That's one way you make money on investing in a company. And to me, I'm like, okay, so this seems unpopular from the point of view of almost everyone, and I get that. But what if you were one of those people that bought stock when it was $60, $70, $80 or higher, and now you've lost all of that money, and the only way you're making any money now back on it is on meager dividends based on what you've paid in hopes that the stock gets back up to its normal price. So the point I'm trying to make is that it's more complicated than meets the eye, Because if I had my 401k or I have personal investments and I was invested in some of these companies, I'd want to extract money out of it too. It's my money that I put into the company. So you have to look at it from that perspective, as unpopular and as completely understandably unpopular as it is. There's just more to it than that. We got one other letter, though, that I wanted to read. Daniel Schiffer wrote in and said, "Hi, C Squared. With the mass layoffs at Blizzard, I have my doubts as to whether a company that size is sustainable. They've gone from $1 billion to $6 billion in revenue from 2006 to 2016, which is incredible, requiring them to consistently appease shareholders and customers in an artistic industry that depends on an entirely subjective and inconsistent product with a high turnover. With their revenue slowing down the last 2 years, it seems no wonder to me that they push out these dirty business tactics under the weight of their board. Activision Blizzard's move to turn Blizzard into an annual release company seems desperate. Cutting their support and QA goes against Blizzard's own philosophy of customer service, and the product will be done when it's ready. When I look at the movie industry, there seems to be a clear artistic authority given to directors on the largest AAA movies, in quotes. In larger games, it seems that artistic authority is too often decided by non-artistic businessmen. So where do you, left-leaning Chris and right-leaning Colin, draw the line between business and art in the games industry? And how important is the developer's artistic authority for success? This is a really, really great inquiry, Daniel. And that's why I wanted to include it in the show today. Because it is hard, Chris, to balance business and making money with art.
Yeah.
And the creation of products. But without the capital necessary to create the products, the company doesn't exist. So it really is a chicken and egg situation, right?
Yeah. I mean, all the big projects have to exist to kind of make a lot of money for the supplementary. Like, you can get something like Child of Light out of Ubisoft as long as you have annual Assassin's Creeds that are just raking in money to allow them to invest that money into smaller projects like that are that have a bit more artistic merit. I don't necessarily think that the film industry is particularly better, though. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Ant-Man was originally helmed by Edgar Wright, who's you might know from the Cornetto trilogy, a lot of those, like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, which is a fantastic movie, by the way. If you haven't seen that, see it. They wouldn't let him have complete creative control over Ant-Man. They had to give it to somebody else because his vision was too different from what Marvel wanted. It's not just the games industry that deals with this. Like, films deal with this too. I'm sure there's countless other directors who have been pulled off of projects because there was a huge thing about Bohemian Rhapsody because Sacha Baron Cohen wanted to make like a proper R-rated movie about Freddie Mercury, and then the board was like, no, let's keep it PG-13 and like make it a bit more generic, and that's what happened, and we got like a Bryan Singer movie. I don't know why people are still okay with Bryan Singer, but like, hey.
Wasn't he, I don't want to throw this out, wasn't he accused of some really heinous shit? This guy?
There's a lot of accusations that I personally am like very convinced by. I don't know for sure. I can't make any statements, but it doesn't look good. But, it's not just the games industry. I just want to correct that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right, Chris. Well said. And I think that, Bryan Singer, I don't know anything about film, but that's where I know that every time I see that name, it's like some sort of accusation. So who knows if it's true or not, of course.
Yeah.
I just think that we're in a weird place with business in the games industry because, everyone has a vested interest in a certain outcome. So I just think that like this drive to react in a totally like opposite direction doesn't really make any sense because it just doesn't come down with the salient points about why these things happen. You don't have to be happy with Activision. I certainly think it's fucked up that you make that much money and don't figure out a different way forward. But I'm also not on the board. I also don't own any shares of Activision or any other gaming company at that. And so I think that we just have to like, what is the argument, right, Chris? Is the argument like you just have to stay perpetually employed no matter what? Is that the argument? That like the company makes the company that you don't own.
Just infinite tenure.
Right, exactly. Imagine having a bunch of money invested in a publicly traded company and you want to extract your value out of it because you took the risk, it's your money, you could have lost everything, et cetera, and so on. And then the argument is that we're now going to use this money in perpetuity to employ people, even if the company, the board, the directive don't think we need to keep employing these people to do X product. It's confusing to me. It's not that you lack sympathy for the people that get laid off. It's horrible. I survived at IGN fucking like 6 layoffs. I saw the damage it does to people and it's horrifying. It sucks. It's terrible. But the fact of the matter is that like, it's just business and capitalism are more complicated. And the only reason gaming exists and the gaming industry exists is because of capitalism. I don't know. I just don't want people to rush to judgment and think that like there's a cure-all out there because I don't think that there is. You brought up Ubisoft, though, and I think Ubisoft's a great example, Chris, of a company that seems to reinvest its money more wisely, seems to be more engaged with what they want. I mean, they've been subjected to a hostile takeover bid for like 4 years now. From Vivendi, they're slowly going around trying to buy up a plurality of shares to take the company over. So they still invest in Child of Light. They still say like, we're going to take Assassin's Creed away for a minute. I don't know. To me, I look at it and I'm like, I don't like Activision's techniques and tactics, but I don't think like reacting in the exact opposite way is a solution because of what it suggests about business, what it suggests about the capitalist system. and what it suggests about investing money and expecting a return out of that. It's just complicated.
It's a huge complicated mess. And there are business decisions that are smart business-wise that do end up damaging the reputation of a company. The one that I can think of immediately is when Marty O'Donnell, who was the composer at Bungie, was like laid off because, hey, it's not all that common practice to have an in-house composer because they're not working consistently the way that programmers are, or like, art directors are, or like, engine people are working, or any of that. But when they cut Marty off, that was like a huge blow to that community, and it was and like after that it was just like constant people like leaving, and you could argue that Bungie's in a worse state now because of that than they otherwise would have been, even though it was a financially probably reasonable thing to suggest.
Right.
Maybe we don't need an in-house composer. It is super, super complicated.
It is. And so I think that people just need to look at it from multiple perspectives, and certainly look at those perspectives with as much empathy as possible, because real people are caught in the strife. But we have to have more adult and nuanced conversations and stop reacting just one way or the other. I just suggest to the audience out there, Chris, and just try to be mindful. Try to have all of the information, or as much information as you can. And if you come to an opposite conclusion than I draw, that Chris draws, or whatever, then that's perfectly fine. But at least try to be fair.
Yeah.
Number 2, in an address given at DICE in Las Vegas, Sony's Sean Layden, the chairman of SIE Worldwide Studios, spoke about the evolution of the PlayStation product and the ups and downs of the brand as relayed by IGN. Quote, PlayStation 2 was an industry triumph. It remains one of the best-selling consoles of all time, but coming off the heels of that was PlayStation 3, a stark moment of hubris in the nearly 25 years of PlayStation history. As we sometimes call it, PS3 was our Icarus moment. For our business, the fall was sharp. We hadn't listened to our customers. We created a devilish development environment. We reacted too slowly, and our network was underdeveloped. And worst of all, if you remember, was the price point. While the PlayStation 3 and our fight to stay relevant has been well covered, what wasn't as well covered was the call we made at the time to transform our company into what we are today. We doubled our efforts to develop incredible games and strengthen our partnerships for the next generation. We listened to developers and gamers. We listened to this guy, Mark Cerny. We created PS4, a console for developers as much as it was for fans. We focused on the quality of our games, on making titles that would stand the test of time the way that the best pieces of art often do, end quote. I thought this was interesting, Chris, because I have never heard Sony so candidly speak about PS3. What do you make of this? What does this mean? This comes at a time when they're going to be really quiet this year. This seems to signal to me, and again, I'm reading into it, it's a DICE address, it's really it's developers and very engaged people even paying attention, but it seems to me that he's saying, don't worry about what happened with PS3.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of putting on an air of self-awareness.
Yes. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's reassuring. For sure, it doesn't seem like they're going to make the same mistakes.
It's the first time I've ever heard them really, or at least someone at the very top, acknowledge the PlayStation 3 for what it was.
Yeah.
PS3 is a great console, but it was a hard launch. I don't know. I found that really nice. And when I read that, I wanted to put that up towards the top, because in a year where they're going to be very quiet, in a year where we're going to be eager to get more information, where rumors are going to be proliferating, it's good for them to talk in an open way about the past to set a seed that we're not going to re-experience that. Yeah. Or at least that's their intention. So I appreciate that. Number 3, the beautiful 2D Metroidvania game Hollow Knight is getting a full sequel from its developer, Team Cherry. Hollow Knight Silksong was originally intended to be DLC, but has turned into its own game and stars the same protagonist from the original. Her name, of course, is Hornet, I believe. Unfortunately for PlayStation 4 fans, however, we'll have to wait a bit. The game is coming to PC and Switch first, and will follow to PS4 at an undetermined point thereafter. The original Hollow Knight came to PC in 2017 and PS4 towards the end of 2018, and we just talked about it. I'm super excited about this. I don't know if you saw the video and the art. I mean, it just looks great. It just looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Looks more like more Hollow Knight. So we have that to look forward to. I'm really excited about this one. Number 4, Square Enix and its fully owned team Tokyo RPG Factory has revealed an all-new game, Tokyo RPG Factory's third, called Oninaki. While Oninaki was revealed during a Nintendo Direct, the game will come to PS4 as well, just like Tokyo RPG Factory's first 2 games, I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere. The game doesn't have a firm release date yet, though it's slated for launch this summer. Tokyo RPG Factory is working fast, as this will be their 3rd game released in 4 years.
Wow.
David S. Graham wrote into us and said, hey, Christopher and Colin Topher. I don't like that. I would like to know if Colin has any opinions on Tokyo RPG Factory's newly revealed game, Oninaki. It was revealed by Nintendo, but is still very much coming to PS4. Thanks for making me anticipate the Patreon notifications every week, even if preparing for midterms means it sometimes takes me the entire week to listen to one episode. Thank you, David S. Graham, for your inquiry and your kindness. So I am super amped about this. I Am Setsuna is one of the most understated and underappreciated of all JRPGs on PlayStation 4, with a beautiful soundtrack and a somber environment and really interesting storytelling and very old school mechanics. For people that don't know, Tokyo RPG Factory was put together specifically to make 16 and 32-bit RPGs and to turn them around fast. That was their entire directive. So back in the day, a team of 10 or 12 or 15 people would make an RPG in 18 months and put it out. And that's what they're doing. And so I Am Setsuna was their first game. This game called Lost Sphere that came out early last year, I didn't care very much for. A lot of people didn't. That's their second game, and this will be their third game. And it looks aesthetically the same. It looks like it's very moody and somber. They really like to deal with dark themes. I was disappointed when it was on Nintendo's Direct because I thought it was going to be a Switch exclusive, which would have been weird since I Am Setsuna was originally a PS4 exclusive, but that later came to other consoles. So anyway, we have that to look forward to.
Yeah, look at that.
Really, really excited about that.
That's a really fast turnaround.
Yeah, they don't fuck around. After I Am Setsuna came out, the theory was that they weren't going to put out another game at all because I Am Setsuna didn't make its money back. But they just are continuing to do what they do. And I think that they're figuring out they're getting into a workflow. It's probably not that expensive to make these games. And so they're going to continue to put them out. And I'm excited about that. Hopefully this is a return to form for them. Number 5, Catherine Full Body finally has a Western release date. The re-release of the 2011 cult hit Catherine on PS3 and Xbox 360, which was a unique puzzle game with dating sim elements and more, will come to PlayStation 4 on September 3rd later this year. Remember that while Full Body Edition also launched on Vita in Japan, it will not have a Vita release in the West. Publisher Atlas also showed off the so-called Heart's Desire Premium Edition, which comes with the game, a steel case, a collector's box, a physical soundtrack and art book, and perhaps most pivotally, a stuffed sheep. Can't wait, dude. Catherine is so good. And I'm so excited about it. And have you seen the drama surrounding this re-release that's been kind of buzzing around?
There's drama around it?
Yeah. Reset Era, the awful video game forum, started this rumor that's apparently not true, that there's like a lot of transphobia in the game because one of the characters is trans. And apparently it's not true and it caused all of these problems. People can go read about it. I don't even want to give it that much oxygen on our show. But Reset Era fucking sucks. No. Like, let's just be totally and 100% clear in what I'm saying. That place sucks.
No, it's awful.
Sucks.
It's worse than NeoGAF.
How is that possible? NeoGAF sucked, and somehow this place is even worse.
Because NeoGAF was like pretty bad, but then like NeoGAF was like, hey, we need purity tests now. And now it's like double NeoGAF. That's what Reset Era is.
It's awful, dude. It's awful. All Colin Moriarty talk on there, by the way, banned.
Oh, yeah.
Cannot talk about me or
I
my
guess
show.
we don't have to worry about being talked about.
I know. Not that we need your talk. We direct our podcast typically to people that play video games, not people that constantly bitch about them but don't clearly play them. Number 6, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night finally has a release window. The long-awaited game will launch on PlayStation 4 and elsewhere sometime this summer. The 2.5D Symphony of the Night inspired Metroidvania created by longtime Castlevania producer Koji Igarashi has been in development for a long period of time and was originally scheduled to come out last year. The PS4 version will be available both at retail and digitally. Remember that while the game was originally scheduled to also come to PlayStation Vita, that iteration has been canceled.
Oh no.
That's not new news, but I'm just reminding you because that's where I really wanted to play it, but we will not be able to do that. Number 7. Dates for the Division 2's open beta have been revealed. According to the game's official website, the open beta will run from March 1st through March 4th, presumably across all platforms, including PlayStation. More details have been promised in the near future. Are you going to jump into this open beta, Chris? I'm probably not. I'm going to wait for the final release of the game, but I'm excited, man. I'm really, really excited for the Division 2.
I'll jump into it. It's March. It's March 1st, open, as long as it's a proper open beta, not one of those like, it's an open beta if you got a pre-order code.
Right. I think it's not locked behind anything. I could be wrong about that.
Good. If that's the case, then yeah, I'll jump into it. You got nothing to lose. It's free.
I'm excited about it, dude, especially because, and I don't know, you haven't gone into Anthem too much yet. I haven't played it at all. I won't play it until I get back from Philadelphia, but it seems like people are pretty cold on Anthem. Are you seeing this? Because
I haven't seen anybody.
I don't know if it's anecdotal, but I'm not seeing anyone super high on it, including some tweets from people at like big outlets that are like, this game's not very good.
Yeah, it seems to me like another Destiny situation.
Like an empty game that has potential.
Like the way I've seen a lot of people describe it is as vast as an ocean, as shallow as a puddle type deal, where it's like, wow, what an expansive, neat environment. Look at all this crazy art with nothing in it.
There's like just nothing
and repetitive
to do.
tasks and repetitive quests and frustrating story missions that you have to grind your way to fit. Like, there's a huge, there's a unanimously agreed upon like horrendous part of the game. The story mode takes you into this direction where you have to basically just grind collectibles that are like hidden in really obtuse ways. Apparently, like if you're working together to take down a boss, it only counts if you get the kill shot on it. So working as a team is like entirely kind of disincentivized. I don't know. I haven't played it yet, but the people that I trust who've played it have not made it too appealing to me. But I'm going to give it a fair shot. I'm excited to check it out. I'll probably download it tonight.
I'm starting to become convinced that EA was more wily than I thought that they were with the release of Apex Legends, because they could have held that game forever. They could have released it, as we said, at any time. I think it would have really been a cool E3 thing where everyone like, by the way, this game is available right now. You know, I think that would have been really cool, much cooler than the way they did it. I think that they might have been internally being like, we need to distract from Anthem. We actually literally need to distract from our own game now. So the Division's going to come out. That's someone else's game. That's going to distract from our game. Let's distract from our game now so that at least people are talking about multiple games at once and Anthem doesn't seem to be as mediocre as it probably is. I'm a little shocked by this though, because, and again, I'm not speaking from personal experience. We will speak from personal experience when we can, but I'm a little shocked by it simply because I was somewhat convinced that the game was going to be good. Like, I thought that they had it. I thought that they might have had it.
Well, I think the problem is that the game is good. It's just not great. I think that's kind of the problem, is like a lot of people say like, hey, it's really fun to play. Like, it feels good to actually play the game and engage in combat. The problem is there's nothing else to do in the game. There's no extra meat. There's no extra charm. Apparently, I heard somebody describe it as that moment in a Marvel movie where they flip the comedy switch. That's like all of Anthem. So it's hard to take a lot of it seriously.
Oh, interesting. So it's got like a black humor to it or something? Like
I
a
don't
dark
know if
humor?
it's got a black humor so much as it's got like a LOL, that was awkward humor, as far as I've heard from people.
I see.
I might be completely wrong. I haven't played it. This is not my personal experience, but I've been looking around, snooping around to see what other people think about it.
It's funny, man, because I love black comedy, like dark comedy, and it would be funny to have a game. Now, I'm not saying Anthem is this, but it would be funny to have a game like Anthem or Division or something that is so deep and dark, but that is not serious.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like
I don't think it's like that. I think it's very lighthearted kind of Marvel type, new Star Wars kind of humor.
Great. Like the casino scene in episode 8. We all loved that.
Like the one where it's like, hey, I'm going to toss my lightsaber over my shoulder. And ain't that wacky?
Yeah, no, ain't that exactly what Luke would do? Number 8. THQ Nordic's shopping spree has continued unabated. The Austria-based publisher has been gobbling up mid-tier IP and even some studios, but its latest catch might be one of its biggest. THQ Nordic now owns Warhorse Studios, along with their surprise hit IP Kingdom Come and their first Kingdom Come game, Deliverance. Warhorse Studios is based in the Czech Republic, and THQ Nordic paid nearly 43 million euro for the studio, IP, and game. Games Industry International reports that THQ Nordic's recent financial results are impressive, with new sales up 713% year over year. THQ Nordic also employs 5 times more people than they did last year. Most staggeringly, though, the publisher now has 77 games in development, with 48 of them unannounced. 48.
What is happening?
When I saw that, that's a big pickup. First of all, I enjoy seeing these, great stories for friends and people I like in the industry. I just do not understand where the capital's coming from. And it's easy to say your sales are up 700% year over year when you released no games the year before.
It's Bezos, I swear to God. It's Bezos just looking for somewhere to dump all of his money.
Number 9. It seems Mass Effect isn't dead, or at least 2017's woeful Mass Effect Andromeda hasn't outright killed the franchise. In an interview with Game Informer, BioWare's longtime creative lead and general manager Casey Hudson told the publication that the franchise, quote, is very much alive. I'm thinking all the time about things that I think will be great. It's just a matter of getting back to it as soon as we can, end quote. Meanwhile, Mark Dara, who is an executive producer at BioWare, noted in the same piece that the team is, quote, definitely not done with Mass Effect. There's a lot of stories to be told. We could pull on the threads we put down from Andromeda. We could pull on threads from Mass Effect 3. There's a lot of interesting space to be explored, end quote. And pardon the pun as well. Interesting space to be explored. No?
Clever.
Okay.
Clever. Yeah. I wasn't that impressed.
No, it seems like a threat more than anything else that they're going to continue with Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Are you threatening me?
I don't know if I'm happy about that.
No, I think it's time to let Mass Effect go.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, for sure.
They really, really shat the bed with Andromeda. I mean, when I played, I only played it for a few hours. I'm like, oh my God, there's just something wrong with this game. There's just something wrong with it. Immediately, there's something wrong with this. It doesn't feel like Mass Effect. Doesn't look like Mass Effect.
It definitely doesn't look like Mass Effect.
No, I really tried, man. Like earlier in the year, I downloaded it. I sat down. I'm like, I'm going to play this. Man, I just couldn't. And I love Mass Effect. I absolutely love Mass Effect. Like the first 3.
Now, there's something deeply off about it.
Yeah. There's something, well, I know we joke around about this with this word a lot, but it's unsettling. Like just some of the character models and like facial expressions, it's just very wrong.
It's very bad. Have you ever seen Food Fight? Just this really expensive, like multi-million-dollar movie that's just all CGI mocap. It takes place in like it's like Toy Story in a supermarket where all of the food products come to life at the end, or like not, or like when the lights go out and it's got like Charlie Sheen as a
This
chocolate.
sounds familiar, actually. Yeah.
You should. It reminds me a lot of that animation where it's just like awkwardly mocapped.
Number 10. Activision has confirmed that Call of Duty's campaign will return upon the launch of 2019's all-new Call of Duty game. This is notable, since 2018's Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was the first core game in the franchise to completely lack a single-player campaign, which disappointed many, though its absence barely seemed to affect either sales nor critical reception. That said, there was perhaps some effect, as Activision has confirmed that year over year, Call of Duty sales are actually down. This now speaks into, again, what's going on with Activision. I really think that they're preparing for a really bad year. They don't have that many big games coming out. The Diablo mess at BlizzCon.
They just lost Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny's gone. I really think that, and I probably should have said this more when we were talking about Activision itself, I really think that they're preparing and like culling the herd now because it's going to be necessary later. And so like you might as well just get it over with and let these people move on with their lives, right? Yeah. Like if you were working on Destiny, there's probably hundreds of people that were working on Destiny at Activision. What the fuck are you supposed to do now? You know, I would have been freaked out. I'm sure some of them are going to get hired by Bungie, but
yeah.
You know, I don't know. Or whatever intermediary, maybe they use another publisher in the future.
I had a friend of mine who like a couple months back, or maybe a couple weeks back, I can't quite remember the time frame, but like as soon as that announcement that Destiny and Activision were parting ways, they were laid off. Yeah. They just like, all right, well, I guess, what do we do? Nothing.
It's very sad. I mean, it's a sad and complex situation. And I hope that we don't ever see a purging like that. So 800 people just lost their jobs, and now they're all going to be looking for jobs at the same time. That's the most unfortunate part about it. I think. Yeah. They're all competing with each other on the free market to try to get back in. It's unfortunate. Number 11. There's some DLC-related news to jump into. For starters, Final Fantasy XV's long-awaited prologue DLC episode Arden finally has a release date and will launch on March 26th. With Hajime Tabata, the game's director, having left Square Enix recently, however, which we talked about on the show, you'll recall that this DLC, which was scheduled to be one of many, will be the last piece of Final Fantasy XV DLC launched. More imminently, as in right now, you can download Resident Evil 2's free DLC pack called The Ghost Survivors. And with Square Enix confirming that Dragon Quest XI's Switch release will come packing exclusive content in a so-called Definitive Edition, inquiring minds wanted to know if PS4 players would one day get access to that content. Website Push Square reports that Square Enix remains undecided, in quotes, for the time being. And finally, Chris, number 12 is a wrap-up. Website Gamatsu reports that action RPG Ghost of a Tale is experiencing a short delay and will now launch on PlayStation 4 on March 12th. Push Square reports that Deltarune Chapter 1, the multi-chapter sequel to smash hit RPG Undertale, is coming to PlayStation 4, though a release date or even release window hasn't yet been revealed. The website also reports that Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy has surpassed 10 million copies sold worldwide across all platforms, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And that Chinese-developed RPG Sword and Fairy 6 is coming to Western PS4s in early April. That's pretty cool because we never get Chinese-developed games here.
Yeah.
Saber Interactive's licensed World War Z game, which is a multiplayer action game, is launching on April 16th on PlayStation 4. You'll remember that we talked about that game a few weeks ago because they wanted and pitched a multiplayer component to Days Gone, which Sony declined. The PlayStation blog also reports that SNK's 40th Anniversary Collection is coming to PlayStation 4 on March 19th. The first-person battler The Wizards Enhanced Edition is coming to PSVR on March 12th, and that multiplayer-centric Space Junkies is coming to PSVR on March 26th. The PlayStation blog also notes that the Minecraft-like Dragon Quest Builders 2 finally has a release date. It'll come to PS4 on July 12th. Unlike the original Dragon Quest Builders, however, there will be no Vita version. And finally, Sony Interactive Entertainment is going to have a new president and CEO as of April 1st, PlayStation Europe's Jim Ryan. You guys would know him if you've been PlayStation fans for a long time.
It's very odd that they chose that date. Something about April 1st just seems like a bad time to do anything.
I think it's a financial year thing.
Yeah. It's also a bad place for a financial year to end.
I agree.
It's just maybe put it a day later, maybe.
Yeah, not a bad idea, Chris. Not a bad idea. Now, new game releases. Chris, would you like to go first or would you like to go second?
You can go first.
Okay. Almost There, the platformer, comes to PlayStation 4. Sprint between saw blades while dodging homing missiles. Duck under lasers while the floor crumbles beneath you. Almost There was designed specifically for fans of the hardcore platforming genre. You've been warned.
Ooh, that's a threat.
No, stop threatening me.
They're threatening you. We're just constantly getting inundated by threats.
I know.
Here.
Stop threatening me to bring more Mass Effect to the market and stop threatening me with this game.
Good Lord. Anthem comes to PS4. On a world left unfinished by the gods, a shadowy faction threatens all of humankind. The only thing that stands between these villains and the ancient technology they covet are the freelancers. Join up with up to 3 other players and assemble high-tech, handcrafted, uniquely powerful exosuits.
I feel like they could... I mean, that's nicely written, but I feel like it doesn't really sell the game.
It's not really a pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cro-Magnon VR comes to PlayStation VR. Welcome to Chromatech's Test Lab. You're here to test our state-of-the-art military-grade color technology, the Chroma Gun, patent pending. Use it to solve our meticulously designed test chambers by painting the walls and droids. Remember how to mix colors from preschool? Congratulations, you qualify.
Daggerhood comes to PS4 and Vita. Daggerhood set his sights on stealing the king's gold. Every man should have a skill, and for Vincent S. Daggerhood, that skill was thieving. Armed with a dagger he can throw and reclaim by teleporting to its current position. That sounds cool. He's going to need your help.
It sounds like something else. What was another game that let you do that? There were other games that let you do that.
Yeah, like, I'm sure there's a character in Overwatch that does that.
Oh, Velocity let you do that. Yeah, yeah. Or Velocity 2X, I should say. That sounds cool. I might download that on Vita for my trip. Especially, again, because I can't play Metroid on my Switch. Death End Request comes to PS4. Video game programmer Arata Mizunashi discovers his missing colleague Shina Ninomiya is trapped in the virtual video game world they created. How can Shina escape? Complete the game and unlock the perfect ending. A success rate of 1%.
Dragon's Dawn of New Riders comes to PS4. Join Scribbler and Patch in an epic battle to save dragons and defeat the villain Ears' evil plans. Clash against fierce enemies and meet many DreamWorks Dragons characters in this fun and fiery action adventure.
Yeah, it's a DreamWorks Dragons game.
Strange. Is that like How to Train Your Dragon universe?
I guess. Possibly so.
Weird.
Farm Together comes to PS4. Grow your own farm all by yourself. Grow your own farm all by yourself. Or cooperate with your friends in this unique, relaxing farming experience. Start from scratch with a small plot and end up with a huge farm that extends further than the eye can see. The Farming Simulator has a competitor now, Chris.
Wow, look at that, huh? What a world. Hacky Zack comes to PS4. You are Zack. Juggle balls, bounce off the walls, and avoid fatal falls as you try to make it through more than 100 levels of precision puzzle platforming. I like the little rhyming alliteration there. Collect stickers along the way to unlock optional time travel. Oh
my God, you're dying.
I'm dying here. To unlock optional time trial challenge levels, as well as extra playable characters who are also extra cute.
I like when you get frustrated, you just kind of taper off.
Yeah, I just get mad.
You're upset. I got some balls for Zack to juggle.
I really I like the way they I like the way they did that. I like the alliteration in there.
Juggle balls, bounce off walls, and avoid fatal falls.
Yeah, it's cute.
It is. Hell Warders comes to PS4. Hell is at our gates. Rise up as one of the mighty Hell Warders. An ancient order to resist the demon hordes head on. Push back wave after wave of hellspawn with an arsenal of weapons and deploy your army to fight, or to bring the fight back to hell. Hell Warders. Those words don't go together. Hell Warders.
It doesn't roll off the tongue quite nice. Hexamaze comes to PS4. Exciting brain twisters for puzzle fans. Tricky puzzles to test your brain power. Work your way from level to level by cleverly fitting the colorful hexagonal blocks into the templates with 4 different levels of difficulty. This puzzle will be enjoyed by beginners and experts alike. This kind of sounds like the game that they give you as like kids, like fit the square peg into... Seems weird.
Square peg in a round hole?
Yeah.
As I would do. Pode comes to PS4. Pode is a co-op puzzle exploration game about a rock and a fallen star working together to solve ancient puzzles in a stunning environment inspired by Norwegian art and culture. About a rock and a fallen star working together.
Why not?
Okay.
Queen's Quest 2, Stories of the Forgotten Past comes to PS4. When the king asked a famous alchemist to look into the murder of his most trusted agent, the last thing the alchemist expected was to discover an intricate network of criminals working from the shadows to bring chaos to the land. Steins Gate Elite comes to PS4. Ready to play the anime? Experience a fully animated adventure with brand new scenes in Steins Gate Elite. Follow a group of young, tech-savvy lab members who discover how to change the past via email using a modified microwave.
I'm going to pass on that. That's a hard pass for me. Finally, Chris, Unexplored Unlocked Edition comes to PS4. Descend into the depths of the Dungeon of Doom and complete your quest. Steal the Amulet of Yender from the fearsome dragon and make it out alive. Unexplored is an accessible yet challenging action RPG that has won praise for its revolutionary level generation tech. And those are all of the games. Chris, obviously we want to bring attention to Anthem, which I know a lot of you guys are excited about. That Daggerhood game sounds cool too.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for me this week, I would say.
I'd probably have to agree.
Chris, to wrap up this show, I've cobbled together 9 more questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience that I thought we could parse through.
Let's do it.
If you so desire it. Ryan Hart wrote into us and said, hey, Colin and Chris, although this question is more for Colin. Colin, you were always reminiscing about Final Fantasy Tactics and how you wish Square would put out a sequel. I'm with you, and while I've tried a few other Final Fantasy Tactics-like games, Disgaea, Tactics Ogre, etc., they just aren't the same. I disagree with you. Tactics Ogre does feel the same to me, but to each his own. However, have you heard of Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark or Acadian Atlas? Fell Seal plays just like Final Fantasy Tactics, is in early access and is great, although the story is not too grabbing. Arcadian Atlas looks like a Final Fantasy Tactics clone, which I'm perfectly fine with. Anyway, curious to hear your thoughts. Keep up the great work as always. Ryan, I haven't checked these games out. I want them on PlayStation. I'm not going to play them on PC. So the early access stuff is cool to me, but I'm just going to keep saying it, we need more turn-based strategy games in the same vein as Final Fantasy Tactics, the same vein as Tactics Ogre, the same vein as Front Mission, and all these other games, man. We need them. We just absolutely have to have them.
I don't mind that it's a clone of it either.
No, me neither. That's fine.
Because there's like so few of those. It's kind of like for me, like if somebody was coming out with a game, it's like, hey, we're making a game. It's just a clone of Shadow of the Colossus. I'd be like, yes.
Yeah, it's like,
do that, please. I don't care. Give me 6 of them.
Exactly. That's
I
exactly
don't give a
right.
damn. There's not enough games like that. If it's a Call of Duty clone, like, yeah, okay, we're all good.
Yeah, we don't need any more Call of Duty clones. Although I like how Call of Duty feels. I know Chris is not a super huge fan of how Call of Duty feels.
No, no. Once you play Battlefield and Doom, it just feels so clunky.
But yes, I agree with you. When you are longing for something like this, I will take it however I can get it.
Yeah, I'll take a clone.
There's a lot of things I'll take however I can get, and this is one of them.
Like hotcakes.
Yeah,
from McDonald's.
Hotcakes, give them to me however you want to give them to me. Why don't they just call them pancakes?
I don't know. Do they call them hotcakes at McDonald's?
Yeah, they're hotcakes. Hotcakes.
Maybe because they can't call them pancakes because they don't use real pans?
Oh, yeah. I've seen them, I think. There's a lot of weird...
Disclaimer. No real pan used.
Now, I applied to McDonald's when I was 14 and they didn't want me. So I've never had an experience to go into the back and look around. But I've always wanted to kind of just skulk around at McDonald's and see how everything is cooked. Because they have the trays and it's a lot of interesting stuff
You got
going
rejected from a McDonald's?
Oh, I was just ignored. So it's even worse than being rejected. Or maybe it's not as bad as
You know
being
what happened to me?
rejected.
This is a real story.
Yeah.
I applied to GameStop. I applied to them for like years. And then I finally got the job. And then a week later, I was fired because the person who had hired me, I think the manager who had hired me, got caught like doing coke in his desk at work.
So why did they fire you?
Because they were like, his judgment is clearly off. We're not gonna. So I was like, what the hell? This is so messed up.
That sucks. So you worked there for just a minute.
I worked there for like 2 days. Like out of my first week, I had like 2 days. I had a day of training, and then I had like one day like out there, like on the floor
helping the consumer.
Yeah, and they just never called me back. I was like, hey, what's up? It's like, oh yeah, coke.
How was he affording coke on the GameStop salary?
I don't know,
really
man.
The question.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just like some concoction that he made.
Yeah, it was like Crush Up Ritalin or something. I went to GameStop actually last week for Valentine's Day. I bought Erin Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu because she's really into Pokemon Go. And I
love the first part of that sentence without context. I went to GameStop for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Erin and I like to get each other like, especially for her, I like to get her like quirky and weird gifts. Like for Christmas, I bought her plane tickets to go to Japan with her friends, and like I'm not like a flowers and chocolate kind of guy. I think it's lame. It's an ephemeral gift.
Yeah.
The gift of Pokemon is forever. So I went to, get Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu for her, and they're very nice in there. It reminded me, I'm like, it just feels, GameStop feels so weird now. I look around, just all merch, like t-shirts and stuffed animals. Place is dying. Like for sure. I was like, I legit in my mind, I'm like, this might be the last time I ever walk into a GameStop.
Yeah. I don't think I'm really ever going to go to one again.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it.
I've went twice in 2 years, both for Switch games. So there's that.
Just get mine from Amazon.
Yeah, that's usually the way.
Them.
Or download it. Yeah, that's just usually the way that we do it now these days here in 2019. Zach Kamek wrote into us and said, hello, gents. I'm curious as to what percentage of the games you start do you actually complete? I have so many friends that tell me they started games and really love them, but they never finished them because they moved into another game. If I am enjoying a game 99% of the time, I don't stop playing it until I beat it. Also, do you feel the need to play games you normally wouldn't just because part of your job is being aware of what is popular right now? Thanks for everything. So the last part first for me, I can't speak for Chris, although I think I can. This used to be important to me, but it's not important to me at all anymore. I'm going to play whatever I want to play. I think that gives you the most authentic sacred symbols.
Yeah, because you don't want to play Anthem.
No, not really. I mean, I'll probably try it and see. Anthem's going to be a game I'll get to a while from now.
Yeah, I'm curious about it, so I definitely will play it.
Right, exactly.
But I definitely don't finish the majority of games. Like lately, I've been better about it. I think probably because of the podcast. I definitely would have finished Spider-Man on my own, but without the podcast, I think Red Dead would have taken me like months to the point where I might have even lost a save and just given up.
Doesn't it feel nice to have it off your plate, though? At the same time,
It
like
does.
now you don't have to worry about it.
Man, no, it's a good feeling to actually finish a game. I definitely did it more when I was a kid, but like nowadays, there's so many games, right? And especially like with all these like sales and like, hey, PSN, here's a free PS Plus game on Steam. Here's one of the greatest games ever for like $2. And it's like, I guess I'll buy this. I probably finished maybe of my entire catalog, probably like 10% maximum.
Wow. That's some fucking Bush League shit.
If a game doesn't hold my attention within the first like 10 minutes, I'm out. Or maybe I'll come back to it later. Bioshock was kind of like that. It was like, I played Bioshock for the first time and I was too scared to play it. So I put it down for actually 5 years. And then I went back and finished it like a bunch of times. I don't know. Sometimes it just really is one of those things where it's like you find a game at the wrong time.
No,
it's like
definitely.
These mechanics are just not grabbing me right now. I got too much on my plate. And then when you're free, suddenly you're more open to that kind of thing.
It's important to play what speaks to you. I think that a lot of people spend too much time playing what they feel like they need to play. Now, I think a lot of this has to do with your time, your age, and how much money you have as well.
Yeah, when I was a kid and I was getting like maybe 3 games a year maximum, I beat everything I had.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for the ones that I hated and felt too guilty to, get rid of because they were gifts.
I don't think that there's any right or wrong answer in terms of finishing or not finishing games. I will say for me, I finish most of the games that I play, but I'm also very deliberate in the games that I play now. If you look back at my trophy list though, when I was at IGN or when I was a little bit younger, I used to play a shit ton of games and like play them for a few minutes, like try a bunch of stuff. When PSN was much more restrained, let's say, and you could literally play everything that came to PSN conceivably. That's what I used to do, back in the day. So, play what speaks to you, play what makes most financial sense to you. But remember, time is also currency, and you don't want to waste a lot of time with stuff that you're not having fun with. The idea of video games is to have fun, to be immersed, to be entertained, to enjoy yourself. I find myself when I trophy hunt, towards the end of everything, like, I just want to be done, And that's when you're like finished with a game.
Let me ask you something. Do you think nowadays you don't really beat games, you kind of just finish them? Whereas opposed to back then, it did feel more like beating a game because the game was actually trying to hurt you, psychologically. Like Contra is a game that's definitely trying to beat you. You know what I mean? And when you beat Contra, you've beaten the game. But like Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't necessarily like a game you beat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's persistent.
Because it's persistent and it's not like ridiculously challenging. It's not Contra. It's not like anything like that. So I wonder if the terminology should be maybe a little bit altered.
Maybe. Some people use that term rolling credits, which I hate.
Oh, I don't.
I hate it. Don't even get me started. You know what another one that I hate is? Best practices.
What does that mean?
So there's this idea like in corporate worlds where like what are the best practices for like X, Y, and Z? You have like a kind of a way that you do things, but it's referred to colloquially as best practices. And I just hate that term. I hate it. I hate that term. I hate the term that they use in Europe of going to university, which we don't say in the United States. We say we're going to college, or like college and university are really the same, like interchangeable words in the United States. Yeah, but I'm going to university. I'm like, that doesn't actually make any sense.
I'm not going to be here for a while.
I'm studying maths.
Maths.
No. You're not studying maths.
Got to take my double-decker bus to uni.
But I wanted to bring up this text that I thought was timely per what you're saying. My best friend Ramon came over a couple weeks ago and I lent him my NES and SNES Classic and he texted me on Friday, literally thousands of ways to die in Ninja Gaiden, which I liked. And it's true, there literally are.
Ninja Gaiden is hard.
Oh my God, do they?
Needlessly.
They just get harder too.
That was when game design was like really influenced by like arcade machines.
Exactly.
They were trying to like suck quarters out of you.
Definitely.
I'm kind of happy we're past that, but I do like that we still have a couple of nods to it.
Yeah, me too.
Here and there.
Brad Gray wrote into us and said, Colin and Chris, if Sony was to introduce a Vita 2, do you think it would borrow heavily from the Switch model?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it must, although I don't know how much it could borrow from it, Chris, because the Vita, or I shouldn't say the Vita, the Switch runs natively. For there to be a new Vita, I feel like it would have to connect intimately to the PS5 and therefore it must be more powerful. It must be something that would receive games as opposed to be able to natively play them. So I don't know how... I don't know. Like,
maybe.
Are we going to get a new Vita? I don't think so. But if we got a new Vita, how powerful would it be? I guess
imagine like a dock or like a hookup on the PS5 that just made your Vita games run like they were PS4 or PS5 Pro or whatever the hell, at whatever actual proper resolution that a PS4 can run a game, because it's just running a higher spec'd out SKU. Then the second you took it off the Vita, or the second you took it out of the console, it's now a Vita game that's a little bit less pretty, but still functional.
That would be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
I would love for them to do this, man. I think Switch is really a really great machine. It's a super interesting machine. It's a little too big for me, but
it is definitely big. But I feel like it's definitely like the thing that I played most of anything that's like a handheld kind of experience, it definitely feels really good on Switch. But the Vita is definitely like way less cumbersome.
Yeah, I like the Vita form factor a lot better. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Vita fanboy. I really do think that it's a better form factor, but the Switch reinvigorated in me this need and want to have viable PlayStation handheld gaming. And I just do not understand why Sony would let Nintendo take this without fighting them. Like, you're just giving it to them. You're just giving them the hill.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Why does Microsoft do it? Why does Microsoft not care either?
I don't know. I always look at Microsoft as a different company. It's weird that maybe not so much with the service now, but like the fact that Xbox was hardware at all was weird. It's a totally different thing for Microsoft. You don't expect them to continue to make hardware, but Sony makes hardware. PSP fought really valiantly against the DS. It sold 80 million units. It's not too shabby. I know Vita didn't do well. Vita's maybe 15 to 20 million units sold, but I don't know. With Switch, it just proves that people want to play on the go. They want something robust and viable that can be played on the go. They want it. And the Switch is going to look really archaic in a couple of years. So this gives them a way to get in, but I really doubt it. I mean, I'm less than 5% chance, I would say. Mason wrote into us, Chris, and said, "Hi, Colin and Chris. I hope all is well. Quick question. With an ever-growing number of Battle Royale games, do you believe this business model is sustainable? Similarly to other games as a service, i.e. Battleborn and Overwatch, will they cannibalize each other because of the time commitment they require from players?" Mason, we've talked about this extensively. I really do believe, Chris, and I don't know what your agreement or disagreement is on this, but I just don't believe, even if good games are continuing to enter this market, I do not believe that it's viable or sustainable. When that Tetris game, Tetris 99, was announced, I'm like, God, come on. How many games are going to be announced, like Battle Royale games? They can't all survive. They can't.
Tetris Battle Royale is a great idea, by the way.
It is a great idea. But the point is like, why? How many of you are going to fight each other? And maybe you're bringing in more players slowly, but it's not going to be the cumulative number you need for all of these to remain sustainable.
A friend of mine kind of put it pretty saliently, where he's like, I feel like Fortnite or anything that's at the top right now is probably just going to die the death of a thousand cuts, where it's still going to be something that people play for a long time. I mean, people are still playing Halo 2, and that's an old console video game. Like, that's got a surprisingly healthy player base. But yeah, I mean, they're all just going to exist. I just think at some point they're going to be, for the people who play them, and they're not going to be in the public consciousness all that much.
I agree, because when you looked at games back in the day when it wasn't even as competitive of a market, like Evolve from Turtle Rock, we've brought this up in the past, but I don't think anyone would call Evolve a bad game. I think that Evolve was maybe a little half-baked and a little bit weird. The asymmetric warfare maybe not as exciting as people thought, but there was nothing about that game that indicated that it shouldn't have survived. And it didn't survive in that much less competitive sphere. Like when Battleborn was announced by Gearbox, I was like, that game is 100% going to fail. Like, oh, yeah. 100%. There's no prayer for Battleborn. And, I was right, but that wasn't like a bold prediction. Too. Yeah, and
Lawbreakers was weird too, because it kind of it kind of proved that people there's a lot of emphasis placed on style. Like Lawbreakers, I actually remember playing for a little bit and being like, I like this. This is better than Overwatch. I thought that, and I still kind of think that, because there's like a guy with a grappling hook in there who swings around like Spider-Man. It's great. But it doesn't have the style or the charm of Overwatch. And I think that's mainly the reason that game failed. It just had no identity to it. It didn't have any of the little kind of things that like make Overwatch kind of charming and like very character, oriented.
Yeah, they seem to be really into lore and, the outside of the game experience. Very Star Wars-esque, where it's like it's all about reading and knowing, and there's like a hidden and secret knowledge in Overwatch that I think appeals to a lot of nerds, and I don't mean that as an insult. I think I'm the same way with a lot of shit.
Like good character design, like character designs that aren't over designed. Like Lawbreakers, I couldn't tell one person from the other. I think Apex Legends actually is a pretty good example of another one that's doing it pretty well, where like each one of them feels different enough that it feels like you're playing a proper character, but it doesn't feel like overbearing. It's a fine art to juggle those things.
Definitely. And I just feel like there's just so many gamers. There's just so much money. There's just so much time. Not all of these games can win. We might be seeing shades of Anthem kind of not meeting those expectations immediately. Who knows what the long tail is of that. I just am really insistent that when games require time as currency, that not everyone can win. And I kind of feel for Cliffy B, because I didn't play Lawbreakers or that Radical Heights game, but like him and his team actually, to his credit, saw that Battle Royale was becoming not something that was going to have its oxygen sucked up by one or two games, which it seemed like it was going to be for a while, but that there would be smaller games entering the market. And I wonder, with Radical Heights in particular, if he just had more capital and more time, if they could have really inserted that game into the consciousness in a different sort of way instead of rushing it out. Maybe. Because you see games that are good that don't succeed. You see games that are bad that do succeed. And I don't know where these future games fit. If I were at one of these publishers, I'd be like, there's no way we're making a Battle Royale game. You have to be out of your fucking mind. It's like all the open world games that were inspired by Fallout 3. They just came too late.
I think the smart move for Battle Royale going forward would be to not make a Battle Royale game, but allow your game to have a supplementary Battle Royale experience that you could optionally engage in as a mode. Because in previous generations even, I feel like Battle Royale would have not been a genre. It would have been just a mode in a game. You know, like Team Deathmatch or Capture the Flag or Search and Destroy or any of these things that's like pretty common in multiplayer shooters. Like, there's no reason why this couldn't be just a game mode in a very content-rich multiplayer game that also has a single player. Like, this is why I think, like, well, at a certain point I thought that Battlefield would have been in a pretty good place with it. But they delayed it for some reason.
Inexplicably.
I'm sure it's not ready, but delay the game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why you would do that.
I think Battle Royale as a mode and as a genre is something that's viable and long-lasting, and people get engaged in these different environments. But why would you be pulled away from Fortnite? Like, what would pull you away from that? What would pull you away from PUBG if you haven't already been pulled away from it? You know, like, these are the kinds of questions that I think people have to start asking themselves.
I think bang for your buck. And that's what I think. Like, I think if you have a game like Killzone, I don't know, like maybe even if Resistance were to come back and you had a full-fledged campaign, you had like the normal multiplayer, but hey, you know what? This is a Resistance game. There's a Battle Royale mode, and that's free. Then I feel like people would be more like, nobody's playing the weird $20 Fortnite Save the World PvE thing. Like, no one's doing that because there's not enough content there to justify it when there's more content in the free Battle Royale.
Oh, I didn't even know that there was a PvE. So is it like a horde mode kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. It's like tower defense kind of with horde.
I would much rather play that.
You would?
Yeah.
But you're not going to.
No.
Because there's just not enough there to justify $20.
Yeah, no. And time, you know?
Time.
I'd rather spend my time on games that I really want to play.
Yeah, I think it'd be smart of any Battle Royale going forward, make it a supplementary mode to something that already is very content rich. Don't dare think of just making a Battle Royale game. Well, hey, I was wrong because like Respawn just came out of the blue.
I still really feel, man, I said this last week. I still think 9 out of 10 times Apex Legends doesn't hit. I think it's just a time and place and energy sort of thing.
But it's also very complete. It's a very like not unpolished game. It's not like Radical Heights that looked
like it was made in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree completely.
No,
I'm not hating on Apex.
No disrespect to Blazinski and his team, like, but like, I mean, that was very clearly a very early access game.
Yeah, it was a desperation play, and I get that, but yeah, for me, I just look at this situation with these Battle Royale games, and I would be tepid about it. I am tepid about it. It's not even that I would be. Sean Plummer wrote into us, Chris, and said, a few weeks ago, you talked about knowing nothing about hunting, fishing, or farming sims. A couple of weeks ago, my friends and I brought The Hunter, Call of the Wild. I totally forgot about this game. It is an Avalanche Studios game that is actually a lot of fun. It has giant maps, some Ubisoft-like towers to climb, a rewarding XP system, and is a great hunting sim that is just really beautiful and relaxing to explore. I found the pacing to be refreshing after RDR2 and the Far Cry games, where hunting means going on massacring dozens of animals for pelts. At one point, I spent half an hour hunting just one moose, and honestly, my hands were shaking when I got the damn thing in my sights. A super rewarding and peaceful game to play on a lazy winter day. Totally forgot that game came out, and I think I'm going to go buy it at some point soon. Do you remember that Call of the Wild?
No.
Came out not too long ago, a few months ago. Avalanche made it. So the team behind Just Cause and more recently are going to be behind Rage 2. Mad Max, of course. So that game sounds cool. I really do want to play a serious hunting game. Like not a Cabela arcade shooter or whatever, but like this sounds like a serious hunting game. I feel like that could be quite tranquil. You know, and I'm looking for more tranquility in my games.
Oh, I'm definitely not.
No, I want that experience. You know, I saw that Flower, That Game Company PS3 game, just recently came to PC.
It's on Epic Store, I think.
I think so. And that game is so special. Like, that game is extraordinary. It's something special. It's something different. I think video games and the power of video games is that it gives us lots of different experiences. And sometimes I want to sit down and chill. And I think that maybe this game... Now, I don't know how chill it is for the moose. That's going to get fucking popped in the head.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's relaxing for me.
I feel like the games that I play to chill are just games that I previously bought for like high octane. Like Doom to me was like one of those games where like I bought and I loved it because it was like really like high energy and I love it. But now I play it to relax because I've been through it so many times that it's just like such a breeze. It's like, I'm relaxing.
And you're a psychopath as well.
Well, yeah.
There's the Doom reference.
Yeah.
Jimmy Valentine.
That's the first one in a while.
It is. Hey, I bring up Mega Man and Castlevania like they're the names of my children or something. Jimmy Valentine wrote into us and said, "Hey guys, great podcast. Thank you, Jimmy. Colin, the question is more directed to you. I'm curious on your thoughts when it comes to NCAA football not being made for years now due to lawsuits. This was a big deal in the South where college football is king. Do you think there is any way NCAA will come back as a proper game? There is a larger discussion in society about paying college athletes, but this is the video game slant on that discussion. There are still people who play the last version of NCAA football and update the rosters each year. I have amazing memories playing NCAA with my best friends and online. It played a huge part in my obsession with college football growing up. I wish it would come back, but I understand the athlete's point of view from a monetary standpoint. As a side note, you need to experience a true college football weekend in the South. It's one of my favorite things to do every year. Thanks for taking my question. Thank you, Jimmy. So, for people that don't know, EA specifically used to make an NCAA football game that was quite popular every year. There are problems with basically displaying player names and faces in these games. So if you played the NCAA games, they wouldn't even use names. They would only use the numbers. So if you knew that Missouri's quarterback was number 6 and he was great, then number 6 in Missouri in the game would be great, and you'd kind of make the connection that they're the same. It's kind of like the old Tecmo Bowl games, right, for the NFL. But the NCAA has gotten so fucked up with the way that it treats its athletes and the way the schools make money that the NCAA games ceased to exist because there was no financially feasible way to make them anymore. As was brought up by Jimmy in this question, the answer is paying college athletes. It's something that I am incredibly passionate about. I think that it's fucking nuts. Nuts. We live in LA here, right? USC and the Rose Bowl and UCLA and all that kind of stuff. They fill in these places with 60, 70, 80,000 people.
That's crazy.
To play a football game. They get nothing for it. Nothing. I saw Josh Rosen, who's on the Cardinals now in the NFL. He was the UCLA quarterback. I live right by the train. And he was on the train, like, you know, pointing down the field, throwing a ball, kind of trying to get people interested in UCLA. No money. Nothing. Just a free education. It's not enough. It's totally unacceptable that these guys are not paid. You know, for the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that these guys bring in, and their coaches making millions of dollars a year. You know, so I think once that problem is solved and once NCAA Division I athletes start getting inevitably paid, this problem will be solved and you'll get your football games again. But until the NCAA comes around on that, the football games are going to be stymied.
That's crazy.
3 more questions, Chris.
Okay.
Sawyer McKay wrote into us and said, "Hey, Collard Green and Crispy Raymond."
I like that one.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I like that one. It's bizarre enough that I appreciate it.
Fair enough. I think I remember Colin saying in a recent episode that he's come around on the PS4 Pro after initially thinking it was a dumb idea. What changed your mind? In y'all's opinion, is there any sense in upgrading from a fully functional base PS4 so close to PS5? Can we expect to see more iterative consoles in the future? On an unrelated note, how much Spanish does Chris speak? Thanks for the company on my Friday commutes, fellas. Chris, you speak Spanish a little bit.
Un poquito. Very little. Very, very little.
You know, my best friend Ramon that I brought up earlier is also Puerto Rican, and he doesn't speak any Spanish either. I've seen people speak Spanish at him, assuming that he does.
Yeah.
Which is very presumptuous.
That happens a lot. And I do understand a fair bit of it. I can't bring myself to speak it. My grandmother would speak very, very Spanglish.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, do get a hot dog? You know, like kind of that kind of
Kind of a little mix up. So I came around on PS4 Pro personally. I own one now. I have like 4 PS4s in the house, but I came around on it when it came to fruition that what I was hearing from my developer friends was not really as big of a problem as they thought it was going to be. A lot of my developer friends in 2015, 2016, late 2015, early 2016 were really scared of this thing because they were like, we have to send games through QA again. We have to make patches. It's going to break a bunch of shit for us. It makes more in the pipeline for us. But it seems like it was much more streamlined than people had anticipated. And once I realized that game developers weren't really hard on with it anymore, I was like, okay, that's fine. That was the only reason I had a problem with it. So
yeah.
Are we going to get more iterative consoles in the future? I think so. I actually did a fireside chat that goes up in a few weeks with a software engineer. We talk a lot about the computer science behind the new consoles, or what we assume. And we were talking, Chris, a great deal about, will the new consoles be modular? And I think that would be much more fun. You know,
that's been a rumor for a long time. I remember back when we were talking about that back in the 360 days. I remember.
Yeah, and you know, we've had modular consoles. As I said in the past, Genesis was extremely modular.
The Rumble Pack and things
N64
like that.
was modular for sure. So I always feel like people don't look at Sega Genesis as a truly modular console. It really was. Like you could put a bunch of shit into that thing.
Oh, it was ridiculous. It was like a Lego set.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the 360 with the HD DVD drive and like the weird intercooler fan and like the wireless. It was like a weird.
Oh, the
wireless,
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the wireless antenna Wi-Fi thing.
It was so weird that Wi-Fi wasn't built into it. I always thought that was a little strange.
That was very strange.
But for me, I look at it and I say, you know what? I was wrong about that. I've talked a lot about how I was wrong about it. And I think that a modular console would make a lot of sense as long as they can figure out a way. You want to deal with the lowest common denominator. People that I don't understand anything about tech. You would need to make it very simple. I think that would be really exciting.
It'd be cool. But I do think we're definitely headed in a direction of iterative consoles. We're already in there.
Yeah, no, we are there, and I think that that's probably what's going to happen. I agree with you. Chris Buston wrote into us and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, I hope you both survived Valentine's Day just fine. I'm sorry to get so serious on sacred symbols, but the recent anniversary of Parkland got me thinking about my question. When reflecting on horrific mass shootings, the national dialogue can often blame violence in video games as one of the issues. Most gamers are loving people with an extreme amount of empathy for others. How can we in the gaming culture push back against these accusations of being quote unquote part of the problem? Thanks as always for making CLS content my favorite podcast." Thank you so much, Chris. This argument was always strange to me based on the incredible amount of people that play games. This goes back to the 90s with Jack Thompson. This goes back to the 80s and even 70s with D&D and with the kind of the right-wing scaremongering about all sorts of things that they didn't understand.
Yeah, but like
that is strangely happening now on the left.
Hey, man, it's not even like I actually did a video I think last year about this where it just seems to be this weird game of tennis where it's like, hey, it's our turn to complain about violent video games. Oh, now it's your turn. The problem is video games are very difficult for people to get their mind around unless they're familiar with them. And I feel like all of the kind of fear-mongering are... Anybody who's actually afraid about, the effects of video games as far as that goes, as far as like causing mass shootings, they're not familiar enough with the medium to really understand what's happening. Because when you look at somebody play Doom, it's very different than playing Doom. Like when you're playing Doom, you're thinking of... oh man, isn't it good? It's going to be sick to like double jump over this demon and like, oh, okay, I'm down. I got this whole situation taken care of. Turn around, shoot that, double jump, get to that ledge. It's a very kind of a playground feeling that you're operating in. But somebody who's watching it is just seeing utter carnage. And they're not really thinking about it as far as like making plays or making like use of an environment in like this kind of interesting jungle gym that you've put yourself in and it's this fantastical world that you're in. They're thinking of it more like, that's just abhorrent. They're not thinking about the gameplay of it.
Right, the input, as it were. The physical and
literal
input.
Which is how most people who play video games are thinking about it. You're not thinking about like, oh, I'm chainsawing a demon in half. You might think it for like a second, but that's not the reason you're playing the game. The reason you're playing the game is to overcome a challenge.
That's a great point, Chris, because it's true that when I'm playing these murderous shooters that I play, that I'm not really thinking about killing anyone.
No, but I'm sure like your mom looking at it would probably think like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, that's fair. To me, I'm completely of the mind, always have been, in the agency of the individual, right? And I think about this with gun violence generally. He brought up Parkland, the terrible tragedy at Parkland. And I really believe that gun violence is up to the perpetrator and that we blame inanimate objects or scapegoat things in order to justify a sickness, specifically in American society, right? Like,
for sure.
I don't think that our access to guns is the reason that there's gun violence in the United States. I think that there's gun violence in the United States because people are fucking crazy. If you put a gun in front of me, it's not going to do anything unless I pick it up and shoot it. Right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the violent video games. We're all subjected to incredible violence in our lives and sexuality and all these other things. And I actually think that oftentimes it's too much. It's just too much sometimes. Like it's too gratuitous. It's too violent. It's too gory. It's too sexual. I've complained many times in the past, even on the show, that I think there's so much wasted time in movies and television shows on sex scenes. I'm like, why? Like, just show them like getting together and we get it and then go to another scene. I don't need to watch it. Like I'm watching The Tudors. I love that show, but it's like, how much sex can possibly happen in a show? So the point I'm trying to make is that you and I are subjected to this stuff. I don't have a ticket to my fucking name. I don't put my hands on people. I don't shoot guns at people. I don't do all these kinds of things. So what explains me? What explains you? What explains the millions of us that didn't do anything? And then why do we scapegoat these things because of the actions of a few individuals exercising their own agency, exposed to identical shit that we're exposed to? That's the problem.
It's frustrating, especially coming from the right, who's because whenever the right complains about video game violence causing mass shootings, it's always baffling to me because you are now actually straight up blaming an inanimate object for committing a mass homicide.
Right, which is
exactly the point that you're not.
It's the exact point that, you're exactly right. It's perfectly put.
It's really frustrating, especially because, even if just basic logic would dictate, if that argument, if you're in that argument where you're like, okay, the game's killing people, by definition, you have to understand that other position where, the guns are killing people, because you're on that wavelength. And certainly one makes more sense. It makes more sense that the presence of a gun is more likely to lead to a shooting than the presence of a video game. But that doesn't mean that either of those things are going to just kill someone of their own volition.
Absolutely right. And so I think that I can't speak for Europe. I can't speak for Australia, places where guns are either completely illegal or much harder to come by, Canada. But here in the United States, where there are more guns than there are people, everyone has a fucking gun. So I think we have to take more agency and responsibility for ourselves and our actions. And it all comes back to how you're raised. It all comes back to your outlook on life, your own passivity, and I think that your own outlook on your role in society. And your role in society should be productive, to be kind, to be helpful. And violence is always a last regard. I'm a complete pacifist. I totally am. Like, I have no problem with violence when it's necessary, but it is very rarely necessary. Very rarely necessary.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of media responsibility too. Putting these horrible people's names up on the news for weeks and like kind of glorifying them.
Right. Exactly. It's exactly what they want. So that's a good point too, Chris.
Because it's good for the ratings. It is. Yeah. And then that's a ratings driven business. It makes sense, but it's also like completely abhorrent.
So Chris asked more specifically, Chris, about how do we kind of be part of the solution and push back? And I think being part of the solution is just being good and just being decent and just being kind and just being normal and productive. And if you're all those things, then it really doesn't matter what you're exposed to. No one is going to make you pick up that gun and shoot someone. If you're going to do it, that's on you. And if you're going to be inspired by a violent video game to commit crime, think about Grand Theft Auto 5, right? And Jack Thompson's fucking inane arguments about the old games. But think about Grand Theft Auto 5 long after Jack Thompson. That game is at 100 million units sold. Now imagine if 10 people blamed murder on it, right? That means 99,999,090 people played the game, didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And you blame it on video games. It's nuts. It doesn't make sense.
It's wild.
I'm sick of the scapegoats. Take responsibility for your own fucking actions. You know, take responsibility for yourselves.
Yeah, we're weirdly okay with shifting the blame off of abhorrent people onto something else.
It's ridiculous. It's
when
because
we should be really holding them accountable. But we give them it's weird. It's kind of like giving them a pass almost. It's like, well, of course he killed people. Look what he was playing. Can't blame him. It's like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. As if he was the only person playing it, first of all. And second of all, you're absolutely right in the sense that it gives us a modicum of control, I think. You can't control the individual. The individual is born free and uncontrollable. We all know that. So you blame the object that can be defined and you try to legislate. It's fucking bullshit. Dude, it could be the fucking purge. I'm still not going to hurt anyone. I'm still not going to steal from you. It's the natural state for most of us, I think, is peace and prosperity. So that's my answer.
Yeah.
Final question and comment comes from Will Selfridge, Chris. He says, hey boys, so quick hot take. I just finished Uncharted 1 through 3 and I think they're not that good. I think this is largely because I think those 3 games are mechanically inferior to games I've played in the last year or so. Just my opinion. I know I'm in the extreme minority on this. So my question is, do you have any hot takes on any games? Something everyone loves and you think is garbage or vice versa? I don't want to even go into that. I want to talk specifically about Uncharted.
Yeah.
This is becoming a more vocally spoken opinion.
I kind of felt that back in the day, to be honest. I think Uncharted 1 through 3 they're fine video games. I think a lot of the charm of that came from just kind of character interactions because we never really had a kind of Indiana Jones kind of quirky, kind of fun, treasure hunting adventure game with a personality like that, as far as I can recall. Tomb Raider...
Yeah, to a degree. Not really, though.
There's a very different tone to Tomb Raider.
Back then there was, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Tomb Raider totally copied Uncharted.
Back then, now they're more indistinguishable. But I think a lot of the joy of that game does come from just kind of characters and the narrative and the just the interactions between people as opposed to the mechanics. The mechanics, I feel, are actually like kind of remarkably dull compared to a lot of third-person action-adventure games, both, recent and even prior. But yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. I don't think they're bad games at all. I think they're actually pretty great, and they're really super well made. But as a video game goes, there's definitely more engaging and more mechanically superior titles out there for you to play.
Yeah, I would never deny that in the realm of third-person shooting, that you can go to Gears of War, you can go, to lots of different directions and get, Vanquish is like my favorite third-person shooter from a mechanical standpoint.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
The one where you're doing like the knee slides? Yeah. I love that game.
Yeah, that game's great.
No one talks about it.
Yeah, I love that game.
It's so good.
That game is absolutely fantastic. And so, I don't know. I look at Uncharted as more of a relic from a gameplay perspective. Remember, Drake's Fortune came out in 2007. I mean, this was 12 years ago. So
yeah,
a lot has happened with third-person shooting. And remember that's only 2 years or a year actually removed from Gears of War, which before Gears of War, we used to play a game called Kill Switch that was really considered kind of the seminal third-person cover-based shooter. And then Gears of War kind of came along and revolutionized that. But Uncharted was never really about the gameplay as much as it was about the story and the atmosphere and all of that.
It's a very narrative-driven game.
Right. So I will say that Uncharted 4, was that Among Thieves? No, what was Uncharted 4?
Uncharted 4 was...
Drake's Deception.
Was it?
Uncharted 1, Drake's Fortune. Among Thieves was 2. Drake's Deception was 3. A Thieves End was 4. God, I can't even that's embarrassing that I can't keep that track anymore. I'm losing my mind. But Uncharted 4 actually was somewhat unimpressed with. And I think that it might go into what he's saying.
You were unimpressed?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was beautiful. I thought the story was good.
You know why I liked it?
The Crash Bandicoot.
You had a little grappling hook in there.
Oh, okay. You like the grappling hook as well. I thought it was because you played Crash Bandicoot in the house.
That was also a nice little thing a nice little nod.
But to me, I remember playing it. First of all, I think that there wasn't that much shooting in it. Like, there was actually not that much action in it.
No.
But there was like auto aim, which you could shut off and stuff, but it just felt so like I was just going through it and I didn't like it. Like, I thought it was fine. It was very well made, but it wasn't for me. So I think that with this rumor, and the rumors are really quite loud, that there's a new studio in Southern California making an Uncharted game. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know anyone working on the game, or at least people that will talk to me about it. But if that's true, then I think we're going to get an Uncharted 5 or whatever, or 6 technically, because Golden Abyss. But that will feel different. That will play more mechanically sound and try to meld the really AAA high art form that Naughty Dog can do with characters and with all that, with gameplay that I think we expect more from. And actually, I think The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be a kind of a calling card on how this combat has evolved. So,
yeah. I think Uncharted 2 is great, though.
Uncharted 2 is great. I like 3 better. I think 3 is a better game, but I know that that's very unpopular. Amy Hennig herself told me a long time ago that if 3 came out before 2, people would feel the same way about 3 that they do about 2. She thinks it's an order of operations.
I'm sure it's probably psychological.
That annoyed the shit out of them, by the way, internally.
What do you mean?
That people like 2 better than 3. Like,
well, I would imagine it would bother any studio that they're, the sequel to something that they made that was great is not as appreciated as the one prior. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's just because the jump between Drake's Fortune and Among Thieves is huge. And I think that it was much less of a pronounced jump between 2 and 3. Chris, that's all I have for this week.
Yeah.
It's a long episode, much longer than I thought it was going to be, which is fine. Any closing comments before we go?
Eat your vegetables.
Oh, okay. That is great closing comments. I need to do more of that as well.
It's good advice.
Yeah, it's great advice if you want to live a nice, long, strong life.
Yeah. Asparagus you can deal with that, though. Don't bother with that.
Oh, I like asparagus.
Well, he's wrong.
So. Oh, it makes your pee smell funny.
Yes, exactly. Who needs that?
No one needs that. Chris, just as a reminder to everyone else out there, just one more time, next week's episode for patrons will go live a day late, so we appreciate your patience on that. Remember to support us on Patreon if you like this show. Also, remember, we love and appreciate you on free feeds as well, so leave us nice reviews on iTunes and elsewhere. It helps us find new audiences. We appreciate that very much. 5-star reviews, nice things to say about us. iTunes is weird, dude, because I was looking at the top games and hobbies chart recently, and we're not on it at all anymore. But there's like a bunch of shows that aren't on it anymore. And I'm like, we're definitely downloaded more than most of these shows, so I don't know what the hell's going on there. Stop burying sacred symbols.
Yeah, how dare you?
Sick of this shit. Anyway, Chris, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Appreciate all of you out there for your love, your kindness, and your support. Till next time, goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is fan-supported over at patreon.com/CollinsLastStand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and I want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart for your incredible kindness and generosity. CJ Anderson, Morgan Ashley, Ethan Barbie, Sean Battershaw, Martin Beck, Fred Bentz, Michael Betts, Eric Bishop, David Blodel, Mark Boggio, Barrett Boswell, Spencer Brand, Lennon Brixey, Matthew Brousseau, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Dylan Burns, Chris Bustin, Alex Cabrera, Brian Cacciatolo, Will Caldwell, Luis Cancato, Patrick Carper, William O'Carroll, Brian Chan, Travis Chandler, Sean Chandler, David Chestnut, Simon Conception Jr., Brad Cooley, Cutter Crow, Nick Cummings, Daniel Diamore, Daniel Delanikos, Mitchell Durkash, Martha Emery, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Stefano Fantana, Fodios Frangos, Connor Gazian, Alexander Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem El Ghanem, Toothless Gibbon, Daniel Glassford, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Miranda Grubba, Andres Guzman, Caleb Hager, Tyler Harris, Kyle Hagel, Asa Haas, Azan Isa El Ricey, Josh Yeager, Justin Yeager, Greg Julips, Anton K, Jeremy Key, James Kinslow III, Ryan R. Kittredge, Christian Larson, Jackson Lastiqua, Donald Laws, Joe Lawson, Don Q. Lee, Ashlyn Lee, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith Adrian Lewis, Chad Lewis, Mark Liberto, Aaron Litwiller, Lewin Ray Loper, Colin Love, Josh M., Ryan T. Mandel, Peter Mark, Nicholas Mask, Joe McPartlin, Wyatt McVeigh, Dennis Meinshin, Andrew Mendoza, Christopher Middling, Albert Miranda, Patrick Malloy, Betty Ann Moriarty, Abe Mukhtar, Brian Nietzsche, Josh Netzel, Adam Nix, George Anthony Nunez, Brian Ott, Israel Petrico, Jorge Palomino, Todd Paxton, Brendan Peavy, Marius S. Peterson, Enrique Perez, James Perrone, Eric A. Peterson, Jason Pettit, Matthew Plaster, Lawrence F. Prokop, John Quinn, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Jonathan Rice, Toby D. Riebenschneider, Austin Riley, Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, John Schultz, Chris Schaefer, Michael Shanholz, Toby Schuster, Shootman, Glendon Cole Simper, Joshua Smallwood, John Tabanillo, Ahmad Tamar, Joseph Thayer, Ben Thompson, Carl Tolman, Tam Tran, Adam Van Kuren, Michael Vecchio, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Mike Wayne, Tyler Woodall, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Casual Misfits Gaming, Supershot ST, Wyatt Henry, Throw 7, Infinite, Mad Mock Media, Mubarak, Sticks and Crits, Richter86, That Rescue Guy, Andrew, Ian, Dav9834, Titus Rex, Donk 2015, Gavin, and Random Guy Radio.